It's time for Fresh Oil with singer-songwriter and pastor Keith Manley, a program designed to minister the gospel of God's grace and to bring fresh oil to the brokenhearted. And now, with today's program, Pastor Keith Manley.
Welcome back to Fresh Oil. We are in our series, The Questions God Asked. And yesterday we stood in the garden with Adam and heard God call out, "Where are you?" The question of pursuit. The question of a father whose child has hidden from him. And we discovered that God's questions are never about information. They are always about invitation. Today I want to take you out of the garden and into the desert, out of the cool green shade of Eden and into a waterless, sun-baked wilderness. Because today's question is asked not to a man in paradise who has just sinned, but to a woman in the wilderness who has been driven out. And the question God asked her is the most tender question in the whole series. Where have you come from, and where are you going? On the surface, that might sound like a practical question. Lost traveler, check your bearings. But this is God asking. And God's questions are never practical in that sense. This question, asked to a desperate, pregnant, runaway slave girl sitting alone at a spring in the middle of nowhere, is one of the most grace-saturated moments in all of the Old Testament. And I believe it is a question God is asking some of you today. Because there are people listening to this program right now who are in the wilderness. Not geographically, you're in the wilderness of a situation that drove you out. Something broke. Something ended. Something happened that sent you running. And you have stopped at whatever spring you could find. And you are sitting there alone, exhausted, with no clear sense of where you're going. God is at the spring. Let me show you what He does when He gets there. Before we get to the question, I want to make sure we understand who Hagar was, because she is one of the most undervalued people in the entire book of Genesis, and I want to do her justice. Hagar was Egyptian. She was a servant. The word the Hebrew uses is shephecha, a female slave. She had no legal standing, no personal rights, no ability to choose the direction of her own life. Every significant decision about where she went and what she did was made by someone else. She did not choose to be in Sarai's household. She did not choose to be offered to Abram as a surrogate. She did not choose to become pregnant. Every major event in her life was something that happened to her, not something she decided. And I want to sit there for a moment because there are people who know exactly what that feels like. Not a slave, but someone who has felt like the object of other people's choices rather than the agent of their own story. Someone who was moved around, used, not consulted about the things that affected them most. And then, when they responded to those circumstances in very human ways, when the pressure produced behavior that wasn't their finest, they got punished for it. That is Hagar. She conceived where Sarai had not. And the text says she looked at her mistress with contempt, which is understandable even if it was not wise. And Sarai dealt harshly with her. The Hebrew word there, anah, is the same word used in Exodus to describe what the Egyptians did to the Israelites in slavery. The word of oppression, of being crushed. And Hagar ran. She ran south, toward Egypt, toward home, toward the only world she knew before all of this started. And she found a spring in the wilderness. And she sat down, and she was alone. And the angel of the Lord found her there. Where have you come from, and where are you going? I want you to notice that this question has two directions. It looks backward and it looks forward, and both directions matter enormously. Where have you come from? That is the backward look. And it is asking Hagar, and it is asking you to name the journey that brought you here. Not to wallow in it, not to rehearse every detail of the pain for its own sake, but to tell the truth about where you came from. To say out loud the thing that drove you to this wilderness spring. And Hagar does it simply and honestly. I am fleeing from the presence of my mistress, Sarai. 6 words. She does not embellish it or explain it or justify herself. She tells the plain truth about where she came from. I am running from. And then the second direction, where are you going? And here is where Hagar goes quiet, because she has no answer. She had been running from something with everything she had. She had no plan for running to something. The wilderness was not a destination. It was a direction, south, away, just away from the pain. And I have met this person in my office more times than I can count. Someone sitting across from me who is very clear about what they are fleeing and has absolutely no idea where they are going. The from is burning and urgent and real. The to is empty. And when you stop running, when you finally collapse at the spring, you realize you have no idea what comes next. You only know you couldn't stay where you were. And here is the first teaching point. God meets us at the spring, not to scold us for running, but to give us a destination. Hagar had a from. She needed a to. And the angel of the Lord is about to provide both a direction and a promise. He does not just say, go back. He sends her back with something she didn't have when she left. He gives her purpose for returning. A compass tells you which direction you are heading. It does not tell you whether that direction is the right one. If you know you are heading south, the compass confirms it. But the compass cannot tell you what south will actually deliver. For that you need a map. Hagar had a compass. It was pointing away from the pain, which felt like south, which felt like home. But she had no map. The wilderness between Canaan and Egypt is brutal country. Without a destination, without provision, without a plan, south was not going to deliver her to safety. It was going to deliver her to worse than what she left. The angel of the Lord was the map. He gave her what the compass couldn't, a destination, a promise, a reason to stop running away and start walking toward. And the destination he gave her was not a place on a map. It was a relationship, a son, a future, a name for what she was carrying, and a name for the God she had just met. Now I want to come to what I consider the most extraordinary moment in this whole encounter. After the angel has spoken to Hagar, given her the instruction to return and submit, and the promise of her son Ishmael, Hagar does something that is completely unique in all of Scripture. She names God. No human being in the Bible names God. God names himself. God names his people. But a human being naming God, it happens exactly once in the entire Old Testament. And the person who does it is not Abraham, not Moses, not one of the great patriarchs. It is this woman, this runaway slave, this Egyptian girl sitting at a spring in the desert with nothing to her name. She calls him El Rei, the God who sees me. And she says, have I also seen him here who sees me? She is staggered. She cannot get over it. The God of the universe, the God of Abraham and Sarah, the God of the covenant and the promise, stopped right here at this spring, looked at her, saw her, not her usefulness, not her function, not what she could produce or whom she could serve, her, the person. And the well was named Be'er Lahai Roi, the well of the living one who sees. It became a landmark. Centuries later, Isaac, the son of the promise, would live near that well, as if proximity to the place where God saw Hagar was itself a kind of blessing. And here is the second teaching point. To be seen by God is not the same as being observed by God. Every one of us is observed by God. His omniscience means nothing escapes his notice. But to be seen in the sense Hagar meant it, personally, specifically, lovingly attended to, that is something different. Hagar had spent her entire life being invisible. A slave is seen for what she can do, not for who she is. She was a function, not a person. And at this spring, the God of all creation stopped and saw her, and she could not get over it. If you have spent time feeling invisible, if your life has felt like something that happens in the margins of other people's more important stories, El Roi sees you. He has always been watching, not as surveillance, as love. The God who sees is watching you right now. And he is not watching what you produce. He is watching you. Now let me deal honestly with the instruction the angel gave Hagar, because it is not an easy one. He told her, return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hand. Go back. Go back to the place you ran from. I am not going to wrap that in a bow and pretend it is simple. It is hard. God sometimes asks people to go back to hard places. He does not always move us forward. Sometimes he moves us back. Back to the relationship, back to the responsibility, back to the difficult situation we fled from. But here is what I want you to see. God did not send Hagar back empty-handed. He sent her back with something she had not possessed when she left. She went back with a name for her son, Ishmael. God hears. She went back with the promise of a future. She went back with the knowledge that she had been seen by El Roi, the God who sees, and that the God who saw her at the spring would see her in the household too. The circumstances she was returning to had not changed, but she had. And sometimes that is the whole miracle. The situation is the same. The person who walks back into it is transformed. And the God who met them at the spring goes with them through the door. And here is the fourth teaching point. Sometimes God's answer to where are you going is back to the place you came from, but not as the person you were when you left. The geography is the same. The person is new. And the God who gave you a name at the spring will not abandon you when you return. Let me bring this home. If you are at a spring in the wilderness today, if you have been running from something and you have stopped long enough to catch your breath, first, tell God where you came from. And second, let Him give you a to. Let Him be the map when your compass has been running on nothing but a way. Walk in His grace. God loves you.
Thanks for joining us today for Fresh Oil with Pastor Keith Manley. Fresh Oil is an outreach of Grace Family Church in Rockford, Illinois, and can be heard each weekday at this same time. You can reach us online at weneedgod.com. Until next time, remember, God's love for you is unconditional, and He makes His mercies new every morning.